Joseph, welcome to the Coffee Pod. My name is Chisha Zed.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
The fatherless crisis in America. Guys, today's video comes from the PBD podcast, Valuetainment. This is actually going to be featuring Patrick Bet-David, an incredible host on his very popular podcast. I watch it pretty often. This video is crazy, man. I'm actually just going to let this one play all the way through and don't plan to stop it much at all because I want people to make it to about the 4-minute mark. What you're about to hear is some very interesting statistics centered around the importance or lack of fathers in households, specifically here in America. No more wasting time. Let's get it.
I have some disturbing stats I want to share with you about fatherless homes. And by the way, some of the stats, you know, I've seen this before. I'm going to tell you, when you read some of these stats, you're going to sit there and say, that is insane. By the way, these stats are from 2021 of the impact a father makes in a child upbringing, both a girl and a boy. Like I said, disturbing, but you will be shell-shocked with the stats. If you get value from the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let me get right into it. The U.S. has the highest rate of children living in a single-parent household of any nation in the world. About 80% of single-parent homes are led by single mothers, at a rate of 23% of children living with one parent and no other adult. The United States stands over 3 times the world average of 7% of children raised by one parent. For reference, the number stands at 3% in China, 4% in India. This is not an area we want to be competing with other countries, by the way.
True.
If there is a statistic to not be competing in, this is one of the statistics. China's at 3, India's at 4, the world's at 7. We're at 23% in America, 0 bragging rights. This is the stat everybody wants to hide. And this is the stats where the side effects of this, we ain't gonna see for 2 decades or 3 decades or longer. Takes a while to see the side effects. Let me continue. Even for children with a father present in the home, the average school-age boy only spends about 30 minutes per week with one-on-one conversations with his father. For comparison, the same boy, on average, will spend about 44 hours a week watching television, playing video games, and surfing the internet. In our house, there is no video games throughout the week. It's on the weekends. After you read 150 pages throughout the week, then you have the right to play video games for an hour or 2 on the weekend, and that's what you have to earn. You have to move your body, you have to exercise. There's certain things you need to do to get to that point. That's our household, but the stat tells you 44 hours a week of watching TV, playing video games, and surfing the internet. Let me continue. 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, 85% of children and teens with behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. Let me read that stat to you one more time. 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of all teen suicide, 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorder come from fatherless homes. That is a very, very big number. Next, fatherlessness likewise has a direct link to teen pregnancy and sexual activity. Roughly 70% of teenage pregnancies come from women raised in a fatherless home.
So I'm going to pause it right there. I know I promised not to, but my bad. That stat stood out to me because you often hear guys joke around about, like, you see women who will be like strippers or highly promiscuous. And the jokes will be, stay in your daughter's lives, or her father is somewhere crying his eyes out, or something like that. But there is some validity based on the statistics to that joke in specific. The less involved you are, a man is in a woman's life, the more promiscuous that child will be, or likely to be a single mother in public experimenting sexually, right? That's something to keep in mind, especially as a man, if you have daughters or plan to have children in the future. Let's get back into it.
70% of teenage pregnancies comes from fatherless homes. 70%. That's a big number.
That is.
And these same women have significantly higher abortion rates than women raised by both a father and a mother. On the whole, fatherless kids are 20 times more likely to be incarcerated and 11 times more likely to exhibit violent behavior than children from two-parent household. 20 times more, okay?
Wow.
20 times more. If a man and a wife raise a child, they're less likely to end up in jail, but they have the same chances as children raised by just their father. You may already be blown away by the stats before, so maybe come back and let me read this to you and brace for impact if you missed it. Let me read it one more time. Listen. Just stay with me. Don't get distracted. Stay with me. Listen. If a man and a wife raise a child, they're less likely to end up in jail, but they have the same chance as children raised by just their fathers. The husband and wife raise their kid.
Mm-hmm.
The chance of this kid going to jail is the same as just the father raising his kids.
Mm.
The problem is the single mother without a father in the picture that can sit there and discipline the kids, give them hope, values, principles, all the other stuff.
Yeah.
We play different roles. This is statistic. If somebody's watching this saying, oh my God, you're discounting women, you're discounting mothers, go get upset at the stats.
Thank you.
Not at me.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
This is stats. Mm-hmm. You can't get upset at 3 times 3 is 9. Mm-hmm. That's stats. I'm giving you stats that's being given to us by the government because they have access to these stats.
I have to say this, and this is so important, man. There's a video I recently did titled ChatGPT GPT. OpenAI is feminist. And the reason why I said that is if you go to OpenAI and you ask it to answer these type of questions, and I did this. I don't think it was in that particular video, but I asked it other questions that were kind of similar along the same lines of like relationships, marriages. You guys know the same issues that are spoken about here on my channel. But I asked it, I said, listen, is it best for a child to have 2 parents in the household? Here's what's really scary about what the OpenAI, the artificial intelligence, said to me. It basically said that there's not enough evidence or studies to show that children perform best with both parents. And when you understand that the same intelligence and technology will not answer the question, what is a woman? Because, you know, it has to include different genders or same-sex marriage, etc. It takes all that into consideration. It doesn't want to alienate a demographic or a group of people who may identify as something that's different from like a heterosexual couple. Man and woman getting together, raising up a family, that it will bend, twist, and lie. It's pretty scary, you know. We still live in a day and age where these discussions can be had and PBD can create a video like this. But there'll come a time when Google won't exist. Technology, AI will take over. You won't be able to reference stats. No one will want to read. People will eventually think that that information is superior. And I'm sure people thought the same thing when Google came out. It's like people would read research papers and you had to know the research papers and studies, but now we trust the Google more. So for people who doubt that they'll be able to have an argument, I believe we're getting to a time where technology will take over, AI will take over. As crazy as that sounds, I sound like some sort of conspiracy theorist right now, but I just don't see it going any other way. And statistics won't be the truth, right? But I've also thought maybe there'll be an alternative, you know, Apple, Android type AI system. Anyways, very side note topic here I'm talking about. But I had to share that with you guys. Let's get back into this.
This is disturbing. Let me continue. Girls with no fathers have lower self-esteem. We can lower crime, lower mental issues, help the economy, lower suicide rates, and decrease homelessness by bringing back the family nucleus. There are things that my wife can do as a mother that I can't do. There's things she can bring that I can't bring, but there are things I can do that she can't do. So now you may say, well, Pat, I agree. I do agree. We can lower this, but then how come it's not happening? And here's the other question. Who's to blame? Who do we blame with this? Now, you may be listening to this saying, well, it's got to be the husband and wife's fault. It's got to be the man and the woman's fault. Fine. How come it's not the same ratios around the world? Why is U.S. fatherlessness at 23% everywhere else is 7% average. So is it really the mom and dad? So how about the mom and dad in India? How about the mom and dad in China? How about the mom and dad in Germany? How about the mom and dad in Brazil? How about the mom and dad in other places? Why are we at 23%? How did this happen? Was it like this before? Is it an evolution? Is it mainstream media? Is it Hollywood? Is it the fact that parents are afraid of parenting because everybody is so much involved? You can't do that to your kid. You can't do this to your kid. You can't discipline your kid like that. Whose fault is it? It's someone's fault. Is it the fact that, hey, we can't really bring church and schools and pray and all this stuff? I don't know. Maybe that's not something you agree with. Maybe it is. Maybe we need those values and principles. But it's somebody's fault in America that this is happening. This is purely a systemic issue that we're having. This cannot be like no, it's really the community, it's the parents, it's the culture, it's all this other stuff. No, standards are standards. We're sitting there not educating. It's not a big deal. Go ahead and do that. It's not a big deal. Go ahead and do that. It's not a big deal. Go ahead and do that. No, standards have dropped, and the numbers are showing. If we judged a country based on how many kids are being raised by fatherless homes that's producing crimes at the levels that we're getting, sex during teenage pregnancy, incarceration, maybe we ought to look at this. Maybe this is very important. Maybe our educational system sucks. Maybe. Kids spend more time around teachers than they do around their parents. Maybe. Who do we blame? The responsibility has to lie on the nation. Maybe we're either too much involved or we're not selling. Take your time to get married. Take your time before you have sex with someone. Take your time before you get pregnant. Take your time before you have a baby. Protect yourself. Stay home. Do not just go out there and have unprotected sex. Maybe we're not talking about this kind of stuff. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. The stat says we're not selling it in the right way, and we're paying a price for it. If you're in a community that crime is high, hello, you're feeling it. That's the stats. So the next time you see a father that takes their job as a father seriously, you can actually say, you know how we see somebody in military uniform? Guess what you say? Hey, thank you for your service. What do you mean? Hey, man, stats, 23% fatherlessness. And you're there with your kids. Thank you for your service. Being a father is tough. Good for you guys, husband and wife, trying to make this work. Marriage is tough. Salute. You make my life better and safer by raising good kids. Salute to you. Maybe we ought to give those awards. Maybe we need to kind of recognize Father of the Year award, a bigger deal. Man, if I ran a state or a country, we would be recognizing certain behavior and turning great fathers and mothers into heroes. Because God knows their job is hard, very hard. Not, making their job harder, not recognizing the guys that are doing a good job, just kind of winging it, which is the way we're doing it right now. Stats don't favor us. We got some work to do. This is an area, I will very comfortably say America's got a lot of work to do. We've stepped away from values and principles, and we're kind of winging it. Anyways, no one masters parenting, and none of us know if we're going to be great parents or not for about 40 years until our kids are 40 years old. By the time you know you're a great parent, you're probably not alive because your grandkids will validate that you were a good parent. So you're never going to know whether you were a great parent or not.
I thought that was a really great video, very important, very fitting for the current time that we're living in right now, where fathers aren't really appreciated. Before I read these comments, I want to make one statement that I'll probably create a separate video about this because I think this is really important, man. We're going to get to a time where saying a two-parent household, man and a woman raising up a kid, produces the best type of child. We're going to get to a time where that is considered hate speech. Given the current climate when it comes to like the dating market, discussions of gender, same-sex marriage, which, I support people to do whatever they want, as long as I get to do whatever I want. But the question is, why aren't people out here talking about these stats and the problems? Well, because for them to say that, they would have to highlight the fact that first, single mother households, this idea where we empower women who are single mothers and tell them they can do it, that's wrong. That's the main thing. They don't want to upset the single mothers. And then you go further and branch out into different identities and different ways of life. As always, guys, we're going to check out some of these comments to see what the people have to say. First comment here says, have we not all come across the young man who's been zombified his entire life with ADHD medication, who's trying to figure life out all on his own during his 20s, the one who's been treated as nothing but a burden for his entire life, the one who hasn't been raised, hasn't been taught, hasn't been loved, listened to, etc., etc. It's a shame. Next comment from another gentleman says, my father was barely present due to work demands and then split from my mother when I was 8. My parents were both never around after that. I would not have succeeded in life had it not been for 4 adult men who stepped up at various points to be a father figure to me. A big shout out to all those adult men who are spending time. Next comment here reads, I've worked in a maximum security prison for over 20 years, and the number of inmates who were raised by single moms or their grandmother alone is staggering. PBD's words ring so true. Next, another person says, it's true. My son, who lost his father as an infant, would spend a day fishing with his grandfather and would come back good as gold and behave well at home and school. I asked my dad what he'd say to him, and he said nothing special. They just fished. This rang true because my dad was easygoing and never raised his voice, my son would say. Another comment here reads, it definitely hits home with this one. As a single father raising a son after my wife passed away a couple of years ago, every night we are at the gym, working out together or riding bikes. He's doing amazing in school. He knows the difference between feels and reals. I teach him how to think. Another person here added, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences that comes from ignoring reality. Next comment says, made a lot of hard sacrifices to make sure I am home with my 2 boys every single day. My sons see me every day. I wake them up and commit all of my day to them and put them to bed. This just gave me so much validation. I grew up in a single parent household, seeing my dad maybe 4 to 6 times a month. I can agree with all this. I struggled so much growing up and refused to let my boys grow up like I did. Thank you for posting this. We've got another comment here that says, my father divorced my mother when I was 10. Quickly, our relationship turned to talking once a month on the phone to seeing each other maybe 3 to 6 times a year. With the mother working full-time and a younger sister, I very much had to seek out my own growth. At now 24, I feel that I am now finally starting to come out the other side of the effects that this had on me. I will never leave my children the way I was left. Our final comment here reads, I applaud Pat for speaking up on this issue in a nation that is preaching the opposite. My respect for this man grows with each video I watch. Guys, as always, I'm curious to know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Listen, I appreciate you guys for checking out yet another episode of the Coffee Pod, and check out PBD if you, I'm sure you guys already know, but head over there and show the guys some love. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.